What's going on, Guardians? It's Corman here, bringing you another Destiny 2 video. Today, we're going to be showing you how to solo the Nightfall Will of Thousands. I'm going to be using the Sunbreaker Top Tree for those Molten Hammers. With Thermite Grenade, I'm going to switch to Towering Barricade. For my loadout, I'm going to be using One-Eyed Mask to help with those smaller rooms and a bigger buildup of ads. I'm going to be using Bygones with the Outlaw Kill Clip, as well as an arc energy weapon. I'm using Nation of Beasts, but I recommend any arc, hand cannon, or bow, with Whisper of the Worm as my heavy. We're going to go ahead and set up our Nightfall scorecard. I'm going to be using Solar Singe with Heavyweight. I'm going to be using Extinguish, as well as Grounded. I've also given myself a 20 power handicap. So let's go ahead and get started. Once we get here, the opening fight, I like to stay back and clear out as many enemies as I can. You'll see that there's a knight off to the right, pay him no mind for the time being. There's also a sniper to the top right, go ahead and take him out. You don't want him to surprise you later. Once that knight's moved forward, I go ahead to this archway and I hide behind this rock structure, and I begin to work on the snipers in the back. There will be a few enemies that are around. Go ahead and take them out and then keep working on the snipers. After I take out those snipers, I push to this rock and I begin to clear out the knights with the arc overshield. As you can see, they are shooting solar, so that does hit harder than normal. If you want to speed through that, I would recommend at least killing the knights. You could probably get away from the acolytes without any real issues. Once we get to this next section, you'll want to focus on that back area. The only enemies that will be there are the ones that spawn. If you do push up there to use the cover of those blocks, the enemies will also push up to that staircase. If you stay back behind this object, they only push this left lane. As you can see to the right, there are no enemies, so that's why I choose to stay in the back. Once the second wave of enemies spawn, there'll be two larger enemies that you'll want to focus on. One is the sword-bearing knight with the shield. Once he appears to the top of the stairs, I would focus fire and take care of him right away. Once he's down, go ahead and just keep clearing the small enemies. There are two versions of this section. One version has a Shrieker, which you can see off to the left there. The other version has an Ogre. The Ogre is a slightly easier one to handle, because if you are using Whisper, and if you can use it better than I can, it only takes one crit. Continue clearing the smaller enemies before moving forward. Once you clear out all the enemies, go ahead and activate the panel. And then move on to the next section. Now in this next section, you can hang out right around there and just use your Whisper or any sniper or long range weapon you have, and take out the ads, and you can use that hallway to block their shots. Once you just have a few left, go ahead and move up. I like to use these blocks right here to block their shots. You can also use this cover to regenerate your health. After you've cleared this room, I like to use this door frame to kind of funnel where the enemy shots are as I clear them before making my way into the next room. And for this knight, if you did not go to the Corman School of Sniping, it only takes one crit to take him out instead of 3 body shots. Once you scan this object, go right back to where we entered the room and hide behind this object. The enemies spawn on the opposite side of the room first. Once you take out those cursed thrall, immediately move to that side of the room. The ads will begin to spawn on the opposite side. And then just clear this middle area while you wait for the next wave. I like to use that as cover, these blocks as cover. At times like these, I'm glad that I didn't put how to use Whisper of the Worm. As you can see, it's the perfect example of how not to. As you can see, the ad spawned on this side of the room, so I would suggest staying on the other. This part is when you would get the wizard or the 2 knights. As you can see, we had the 2 knights, so I went ahead and used my super before they could reach me. And just continue to clear the room. As you can see, the javelin is up. You can push forward and grab the javelin and use that to clear the ads. I like to clear out all of the enemies in this room, so that way I don't have to worry about any of them coming up from the side and getting me. Then once you get to this section, if you notice, you just walk through the threshold of that door and it begins spawning the new wave of enemies. There's a lot of cursed thrall in this next section. As you can see with the second wave, it brings out the bigger enemies. Go ahead and take them down immediately, but be mindful of the cursed thrall that are still around. Now that you have all the enemies defeated, go ahead and open up the next vent. Now I do have 2 versions of this next room. This is the first version. I like to call this Panic Super and make it all the way to the end. As you can see, we're clearing the acolytes here in the middle. I've sustained quite a bit of damage, and I messed up my grenade. So I went ahead and took out this meleeing knight. This causes the ogre in the back to spawn. I wasn't landing my crits, so I went ahead and just supered. And I just threw as many hammers as I could. And much to my surprise, I was able to finish this encounter. Now for the proper run of this room, you want to go ahead and still clear the ads up front. I would suggest having super. I was just waiting a few moments while it regenerated. And then I push off to the right. As you can see, the wanted enemy has spawned. Just pop a few shots at him, and then turn back and go back to these blocks as cover. Watch out for the meleeing knight. I went ahead and used super. And you want to go ahead and clear this back right area. And then this is going to be the safest spot to be in this room. Go ahead and use that pillar to block sight from the ogre. And make sure you pay attention to all the stronger enemies. There'll be 1 of those knights to take out, and then it's safe to start clearing the smaller enemies. It's important to note that the ogre will start to wander, so make sure you keep an eye on it. So I just like to stay between these blocks and that back right area. As you can see, the wanted enemy has moved to the other side of the room, so you don't have to pay him any mind. Now that most of the ads have been cleared, go ahead and focus on the ogre. And be aware that there are 2 knights that spawn. You can choose to engage them, or you can just immediately push forward, pick up the javelin, and go into the next room. I like to waste time, however, and I clear out all of the enemies in this room. We pull off some lucky snipes, and continue clearing the trash ads. Once it's clear enough, go ahead and pick up the javelin and throw it into the furnace. For the lack of a better term, the furnace. Then when you go to the next section, I just stay in this and use the doorway as cover, taking out as many enemies as I can with the javelin. Once all this is left, you can run past instead of choosing to engage. Or you can continue to waste time as I did by clearing out all the enemies. And now that we've gotten to the boss room, I like to use this little structure to the left. It provides cover from Zol while he's shooting those fire blasts, which is important since Solar Singe is on. While waiting, I couldn't hit that crit, so I don't know if you can or not. But he'll fire this fire blast twice, and then that's when you have the opportunity to hit his crit and begin DPS. As you can see, the Catalyst on Whisper of the Worm and Solar Singe continues to melt bosses. Once it gets to that point, I like to push immediately to the very back of the room, and I use this structure as cover. With this wave, you'll see that 3 wizards spawn. It's important not to kill all 3 wizards, as that's what will begin the next DPS phase. As you can see, there's also sword and shield knights that spawn with that wave, so do be mindful of them. Then continue to clear the wizards and the other smaller ads. Once your screen turns to this green color, be mindful of Zol, as he does track you at the very beginning. Now that he's off to this left side, I did try to shoot him in that animation, but he was immune. So I wait until he turns that purple color, and that's when he's vulnerable again. It only took 1 shot for him to vanish again. This next wave of enemies has 3 ogres. That first ogre is important to take out. It is the most aggressive and pushes towards you. Once you take that one out, go ahead and start working on the smaller enemies, because you don't want all the thrall to overrun you. As you can see, the next wave is spawned with one sword and shield knight. If you are running Titan with shoulder charge, it only takes one shoulder charge to take him out. Once you've cleared enough of the enemies and you feel safe enough, go ahead and push forward and take out the last ogres, as that will start the final DPS phase. And now that he's up this time, he doesn't track you, so just take the one shot that's left to finish the encounter. And that's how you solo the Nightfall Will of Thousands.